And so, my friends, it is with humility, determination, and boundless confidence in America's promise that I accept your nomination for President of the United States.
A landmark moment in American history on day 4 of the Democratic National Convention. Hillary Clinton accepts her party's nomination for President of the United States, becoming the first woman to lead a major party's ticket in the race for the White House. She stressed her steadiness, her experience, and the celebration continues at Wells Fargo Center in Philadelphia. Good evening, I'm Jerry Seib, and now the hard part begins for Hillary Clinton and both parties. The race for 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue goes into high gear, and voting happens just 102 days from now. To talk about all this, I'm joined here in Philadelphia by Glenn Hall, U.S. editor of the Wall Street Journal, my colleague in the Washington Bureau, Janet Hook. You were in the hall, Janet. How did it go down?
It was really quite an emotional and raucous scene. I mean, the speech was extremely well received. The crowds were, they were waving a lot of American flags, something that you don't often
Democrats don't always
associate with the Democrats. There were sort of scattered episodes of heckling by Bernie Sanders supporters. Many of them showed up in these bright yellow neon T-shirts to stand out. There actually weren't that many when you surveyed the crowd.
But just a sign the Sanders rebellion wasn't quite over,
right,
even as she spoke.
It wasn't quite over. Didn't make a big splash, but the Hillary supporters basically drowned them out any time they started to make any booing sounds.
Yeah.
So that there were some peak moments. Most of them, her best lines were when she attacked Donald Trump, and there were a lot of those.
Yeah. Glenn, I wrote a piece quickly while the speech was going on saying that if you compared the speech we all listened to a week ago in Cleveland with the one we had tonight, these are not just different views of America from Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. They are polar opposite views.
That's right, and she really laid that out, and it was one of the missions of this speech, right? She had to do that, draw that contrast. She's going to fight for you. She's going to fight for minimum wages. She's going to fight for the right kinds of trade deals, for protections for workers, for protections for women. She laid all of this out and contrasted that with Donald Trump's positions, or in many cases, as she put it, his lack of position, his lack of actual plan, and she really made those contrasts.
Well, as Janet said, she came back to that contrast and the Trump characterization over and over again. Let's listen to one spot in the speech where she did that.
They thought he couldn't possibly mean all the horrible things he says, like when he called women pigs or said that an American judge couldn't be fair because of his Mexican heritage, or when he mocks and mimics a reporter with a disability or insults prisoners of war like John McCain, a hero and a patriot who deserves our respect. Now, at first, I admit, I couldn't believe he meant it either. It was just too hard to fathom that someone who wants to lead our nation could say those things, could be like that. But here's the sad truth. There is no other Donald Trump. This is it.
You know, so Janet, I think a lot of us talked coming into this week about the dual missions that Hillary Clinton had. One was to convince people to vote against Donald Trump. One was to convince people to vote for her. And every convention has some balance of that. What was the balance in this speech? Was this more about voting against Donald Trump or more about voting for Hillary Clinton?
She did do both. And she also had the other mission of kind of trying to present a more humanized kind of warm side of Hillary Clinton. And so she started out with some of her own personal life story. And then she did talk a lot programmatically about what she wanted to do, in part because she has to bolster her argument that Trump is not trustworthy because he doesn't have specifics. But I would say the emotional core of it was her argument against Donald Trump. I mean, she really spoke with, and it wasn't a kind of a fear-mongering approach. She just kind of laid out things, as in that quote, things that he said, and said, can you believe a president of the United States would say that?
Yeah. But Glenn, she doesn't necessarily do warm and fuzzy or soaring rhetoric very well. I'm not sure she needs to. Did she do enough of it in this speech, you think?
Well, I think what she did well at the speech was acknowledge that very problem problem that she faces and tackled it straight on. And she said to the people, let me explain why I'm that way, right? It's because I care about the details, because the details matter to you, and it's going to matter to that family and that person. So she tried to make it her foible into a strength, and I do think she got real for as real as she could be with the voters, and I think it helped a little.
Well, and she had that great line about being a public servant. She said, I always had an easier time with the servant part than the public part.
That's true.
And there's nothing like a little bit of self-deprecation goes a long way in politics.
She did show a little bit of her humor in the speech throughout.
Tiny bit.